Welcome all to the New Dream Podcast. I'm Sarah Grady, and as Bryce Savage's song states, I'm a Pisces with no fake love here. My soul felt deeply called to create the New Dream movement of unconditional love and support for all, so here we are. Whether you're here for the stories, engaging authentic conversations, to discover new tools to create change in your life, or just the unconditional love and support that's felt, know that you are beyond welcomed. Take what fits for you, leave the rest, because life is yours to live and your heart will know the way. Let's get started creating our new dreams. Hello, welcome to the New Dream. Today we have James Pipitone. Did I say that right?
Yes, you did.
Perfect. James Pipitone from New York. He is a awesome soul that we just connected. What is it? Not even a week ago. And I cannot wait for you to share a bit about your story and your journey and just the light that is James. So, welcome.
Thank you very much, Sarah. Appreciate it.
So
Happy to be
today,
here.
tell us a little bit about you, like where you're at right now in this lovely earth world that we're experiencing.
So I only recently realized that life is kind of like a journey. It's not just my experience is my experience. So without getting down the rabbit hole, I'm just a person trying to work on myself every day and to improve my daily existence because at some point it wasn't the best of times.
Mm-hmm.
And I never really understood why it was that way. So it would hash out in anxiety, it would hash out in troubling thoughts, and it would be disruptive to my whole progress just as a soul.
Right.
So that led me to try and help my family in our situation that we were in. It led to me trying to please my parents. It led to me trying to do a lot for my younger siblings. And ultimately, through that process, I figured out years later that my dreams, my aspirations, my desires, my ambitions were all outside of myself.
Mm-hmm.
And once I realized that, it was pretty devastating to me because I've spent years of my life focusing on that,
Right.
which connected to my love for my family, connected to my love for myself, what I thought was love for myself, and my relationships, because I connected everything to one big dream. And once I eliminated that and I realized that it really is not who I am on a deep soul level, it was devastating and it shattered my whole existence. So since then, that was about a year and a half ago
Okay.
when that really unfolded. And since that point, I've just been in this process of rediscovery. So that led to a lot of insecurities coming up. It led to a lot of beautiful feelings of lightness once that weight was lifted off my shoulders. And I was able to experience a lot of deep spiritual, meaningful impacts from the divine, from the universe that wouldn't have gotten any other way. But reality started to creep in at some point, and just like any other dark night of the soul after an awakening, it just started creeping in and getting darker and darker. So a lot of the energy I once had to get a new life going,
Mm-hmm.
the traumas, the insecurities, the emotional connections that I had started to overwhelm me. And from there, it's just been another deepening process, but this time with a different focus on the spiritual side rather than the masculine, you have to make money, the 3D physical world of reality, materialism. I've been connecting a lot more with my sensitive side in a healthy way and looking at my life in form of what has shaped me to become a person that I no longer am.
Mm-hmm.
And from that lens, I'm able to really look inwards and see what is it about my life that I've held on to kind of in the book, like the book that you mentioned,
Mm-hmm.
where I've eaten the bad apple and the knowledge that I've gained isn't really mine of who I am. So right now I'm in the process of unfolding that, deprogramming myself from a lot of um, those dialogues that I would have myself
Mm-hmm.
and feeling lighter on a daily basis, knowing that I'm releasing it constantly. And the more I release, the better I feel. And then ultimately, I'm able to do more meaningful work, which is where my ambitions are now in what I've really always tried to do, which is help people, which
Right.
why I think what you're doing here is beautiful. And
Okay.
you're doing an amazing job letting people speak their voice and speak their truth. And without you, I wouldn't have been able to get over some of my validation issues that this dark night of the soul has brought up to me. So I just want to say thank you for that.
It's my pleasure. This is where my joy lies. Kind of going through the exact same thing you just talked about, which is where the beauty lies with us having these conversations and why I created what I created. Because we have these conversations and hearing just that little bit, like I have no idea what you went through yet, but knowing where you're at right now, I connect with that on a deep level and you don't feel so alone in the journey. So I appreciate you for stepping out and
Of
just
course.
saying, hey, I want to be on.
Knock knock.
Super, super appreciated. So my question is, so like right now you would consider it like your second spiritual awakening
I mean,
almost?
what I've realized about the spiritual awakening process, it's more like you either get tiny little lights
Mm-hmm.
or you get like a big bang and it just hits you. So I
Right.
would say this is my third big bang in a different way. My first one was the hardest because I wasn't really conscious of what was going on.
Right.
So it was more traumatic. It was like a traumatic spiritual awakening. This one felt a lot more under control. And the second one was more like shifting. It was like a shift, not so much like what this is, which was just like my brain felt like it was getting shedded off my body. So um yeah, it wasn't easy, but
See, that's super intriguing because I have there's a someone that interviewed me to be on their podcast not too long ago, and he kept referring to my journey as a life quake. Like that he called them life quakes, and it is. It's I feel like it might have been in one of those books that I told you to read. Like I said, you should totally check these out. It's like these little bits, like you have the little things that are, you don't realize that they're moving you, but they are moving you to an extent. But then you have the big ones that you have no choice but to make a move. And it's almost like the universe saying, hey, we're helping. We're gonna realign you real quick.
yeah, a lot of people that I talk to whenever I get into this type of stuff, it's almost like the universe is always sending those little quakes,
Yep.
but you're not listening to them as much as they want you to.
Nope.
So for me, it was like always like, especially with my career, I wanted to be a day trader, and I still do at some point, but the quakes would creep in every time, and I would always ignore it because it's like, no, I want to do this. Like, I want to make all this money. I want to be fully independent and be a day trader, and this would go on for months and months and months. Where as I'm journaling and trying to be the personal developer, better person that I thought I was being, which
Right.
I guess I was, it would always slip in like maybe you shouldn't be trading. Like maybe you really should. And those little quakes is what I would ignore and I would push in. And what the
Right.
universe does is when you're not listening, you get that 9.0 magnitude earthquake that's just like, all right,
Yep.
you mofo, here it is. And everyone I
You're
talk to, I always reference something similar. So yeah.
so funny because it's true. It's like you're on the wrong road, or maybe it's the right road, but at the wrong time.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like you're driving with no lights on and everyone's
Yep.
beeping at you, but it's
Yep.
until you get in a car crash that's like they tried to warn you and
Yep.
now you're in an
I
accident.
cannot agree more. And it's interesting. So like the first time that happened for you, were you, I'm curious like where your mindset was at. Like were you in this place of life's happening to me, not necessarily for me? Like what was it that caused you to kind of like, okay, I have to shift right now?
So the first time it happened to me, I was in high school and I was a sophomore, just became a sophomore, and I moved from one part of New York to another. And so I had no friends. I was in a brand new high school, and I would go out party with my friends in another borough. Um, and there was a point when I overdrank. Whatever age I was, 14, 15, I overdrank and I had this stomach pain. And when I had the stomach pain, for the first time, I realized the connection between the mind and the body.
Right.
What that caused was a cycling effect in my brain of overthinking, over worrying that I just couldn't control. And then what happened from that point was when I realized I couldn't control those thoughts and they were just a recurring theme, it was like, wait a second, what are thoughts? And then when I started questioning what thoughts even were, it led down a extremely anxious, almost psychosis feeling of being out of my body. Like on a daily basis, I would feel as though I'm not in my body. I thought I was hearing things. I went to therapy. I was trying to like figure things out. And ultimately, all the thoughts I would have on a daily basis that I would just suppress into my subconscious were now coming out all the time. And, from my upbringing to it was just we're in a big family. So we were in tight living situation. And all those fears, anxieties about wanting to help my family, my parents, my mother, my siblings, they would just keep popping up. Not only that, but my own inner problems, they kept
Right.
stemming out. And then the question of reality started to creep in, which was the scariest part because
Yeah.
at that age, I didn't really know anything. But the only thing that was constantly on my mind was this question of reality and
Yeah.
what this even is, which at that age is just so overwhelming that it overtook my entire existence. And there
Yeah.
was a point where I was sitting in my classroom and would constantly have to get picked up from my mother because the anxiety would be too much. And I was at a point where I was sitting there in such deep thought, not even paying attention. The teacher started snapping at me, and I wasn't really even paying attention. And all I could think of for some reason was the universe, like the actual galaxy itself. And I started just shaking because I was trying to take on so much at once. The question of reality, the universe, God, what is my visual existence? What is my body? Where do we come from? All these overwhelming energy filled questions, and I just broke. And it just
Oh,
that experience got better for about 2 3 years 3 4 years until I went to college. Once I went to college, similar, I felt a lot better. I was still anxious on a daily basis. I didn't really have all the questions answered because I was still trying to figure out my 3D life, like where am I going to go to school, my what am I going to do for the rest of my life, my career. And then I thought I had it pretty well figured out. I thought I was going to get a corporate job in finance. I wound up getting an internship through a friend working in Manhattan. So I was doing like the commuting route. I was getting paid for it. So it was like pretty good for the most part. But something just overtook me. And going into the bus to get to work every day, I would be shaking and it would just come right back. Those same traumatic events from high school would just come back. It wasn't until 2 3 months later that I realized that what I again spent years of my life trying to accomplish, I didn't want to do. I had no freedom, and that scared the
right.
crap out of me. And that was really when the second awakening happened. And I didn't know who I was, what I was doing, where I was going, but I knew I wanted freedom, and I didn't want this job anymore. So that's when the shift happened, and I started going towards day trading.
Mm-hmm.
I wound up getting hit by a car my sophomore year of high school. So I had some money from a lawsuit. It wasn't much that I was able to dedicate. And I said to myself, this is the money that I'm going to use to change my family's life. And from there, the stress and anxiety just kept growing and growing and growing. Um, I eventually went back to school. I would transfer to a different university. I went back to my original university, which was I was away at school. And when I was there, I still had this anxious feeling all the time because I still didn't know what I was doing. I knew I had an idea, but I didn't know how to do it or anything. And so once I got there, I wound up taking therapy at the school. And the simplest trick that the therapist taught me, the first time I felt seen, my old
Mm-hmm.
therapist wasn't too great, but this therapist was younger. She had more emotional compassion for me. And the one thing she taught me was that you can actually control your thoughts. And
Right.
I didn't understand that. Like I don't talk to anybody. I don't know. So she told me that when you have these overwhelming thoughts and feelings, just picture a red sign that says stop. And to me, that was like, you really? I can do that. And like I did that. And I was like, oh, I feel better. Huh. I was like, okay. So now I know I control my thoughts. Before it was just constantly overwhelming me. So once that happened, I felt a lot of alleviation that gave me the clarity I needed
Right.
to be able to take control of my life. And from that point on was where I started doing day trading. And I realized I wanted to travel the world. I realized I had a lot more ambitions. I wound up, me and my longtime high school girlfriend time, we wound up breaking up. So I had a lot more time for myself. And here we are today.
Oh my goodness. Like That had to have been so, like, I'm curious, through all of that, did you tell anybody? Like, did anyone know, like, the amount of weight that you had on your shoulders through all of that?
So my mother was there for me throughout the whole time.
Mhm.
And my family was, but it's tough because it's an older generation. They don't, not they don't believe in therapy, but it
Right,
was tough to really get them to understand that, not toughing it out. Like they were trying to make me tough it out in the beginning until they realized the
right.
severity of what it was. Once that occurred, my parents have all the love in the world for me. My family, I love my family, they love me.
Mhm.
But the one thing that was a repeating pattern was my mother would always say, "You shouldn't be feeling like this." And
Right,
that's not wrong on her because she's talking from a compassionate point of view, which I
right,
understand now. But at the time, it was me being myself even more. Like I shouldn't feel like this. Why do I feel this? I shouldn't, and that just made it kind of worse. So
right.
at that time, she would take me, and she's still my mother. She has her things that she has to work through,
Mhm.
so that would kind of bleed into my reality at that age too. So it was almost like I was trying to calm my mother down because I felt guilty about how I felt because I knew it was hurting her, but I
Yep,
couldn't control how I felt, which made it worse. So I was constantly feeling guilty for how I felt because my mother's already stressed out, my father's
right.
already stressed out, and I'm just stressing them out even more, making them worry every day, taking me to doctors, trying to figure things out with my vitamins and all this stuff. And then knowing that your son's going to therapy, like, oh my God, I feel like such a piece of crap. Like, why do I have to
Right,
feel this way? So it just made things a lot worse, knowing that I already felt guilty and this just compounded it. And I think that's when my trauma around my family guilt started, because I felt like I was such a source of trying to be loving and helpful.
right,
But that traumatic event, time frame in my life, really, it didn't help, at least from what I saw. Like obviously we're on a loving journey, we're all just part of this experience, but at that time I felt as though I was making things worse, which obviously I wasn't, but that's just how things go when you're at that age.
right. Well, and when you have this amount of love that you like, I can feel the love that you carry for your family. I can see it's so easy to get into the loop of, "I don't wanna hurt you. I don't wanna be a burden to you, but this is who I am, but what can I do to make you feel better?" Like, you were taking everyone else's needs on top of your own needs, and that weight.
Yeah, and at that age, my youngest brother, he's 9.5, 10 years younger than me, and
Mhm.
I've always wanted to like take care of him. Like I've always
Right.
wanted to like be sure that he's taken care of, because I'm one of five siblings, so my parents would kind of make me take him on as almost like my son. Like he would always be like, "Oh,
Yeah.
James would take care of you. James will take care of you." And it's like, okay, I would always be the one watching him, taking it, control, making sure that he's well taken care of. Like if he goes around running around.
Right.
So I also put a lot of guilt to make sure that he would have a good future, like just period. So and like I love my siblings, but I felt as though they could kind of take care of themselves. But my youngest, it
Mhm.
was always like I want to make sure he's okay. So I took
Right.
the guilt on from him too. And it wasn't until a year and a half ago that I had the conversation with my parents that I was like, I'm taking on so much. And it wasn't until I heard my father say to me, like, listen, James, like, you don't have to do this. Like, you don't have to take on, like, we're adults, like, we can take care of ourselves. Like, yeah, we might be in shitty situations, but whatever it is, like, you have to figure yourself out, because if you don't, you can't help other people. Like, it just won't happen.
Oh,
And it was crazy about that was I'm reading all these books, right? And I'm trying to like learn things. And
right.
the pattern across it is always like the universe would creep in with those light quakes and say, like, you need to take care of yourself. You have to do the things for yourself before other people. And my father just spits this out of his mouth. Doesn't read a single spiritual book, but he knows this. I was like, sometimes the universe just talks through.
Yep.
And my father would not be the person to say that. Like, he's not that type of person. But when he did say it, it was like such a relief. I'm like, oh my God, you're right. And but then the connection's still there. So I felt better, but I still have to drop it myself so
Yep.
that it doesn't creep in again. So even
Yep.
though I had that temporary satisfaction, that relief is what I've been working on, trying to drop that, those deep emotional connections to certain um, patterns, I guess we could say.
Right. Well, because they're habits at that point. Like we
Right.
have to do, it takes how many years to become who we are? So like if you go through 30 years of being one person and taking on all these different ways of, keeping yourself safe or moving about the world, and then all of a sudden you're like, well, crap. None of this actually fits. Like this is not bringing me what it is that I need, but it took 30 years to become that person. It's going to take time to unlearn. And I think, would you, from your, like where you're at now, do you think that a big part of it is just having that compassion for yourself at that point? Like holding space for the fact, like, I am a human, I did these things, and I was who I was, but I have to lovingly walk myself through unlearning so I can finally connect with who I am inside.
Yeah, definitely. At this stage in my life, I'm learning what feel good, loving energy is like, that
Right.
compassionate side. And I'm
Right.
starting to learn what it means to love yourself more and to
Mm-hmm.
give yourself a little bit more leeway, I guess, because I was always so hard on myself. I was always so get it done, get it done, get it done, like scarcity. Just
Yep.
I'm starting to learn what that abundance love feels like.
Yep.
And um it- I'm trying to rush the process. And
I get that.
you made a good point. You have to let the habits kind of fall out. It's not an overnight thing.
Yep.
So for me right now, it's kind of like I'll get the blips where I feel those habits pop into my head and I'm aware of them.
Yep.
And then when I sense them, I want them to stop altogether. I'm like, stop it right now, stop, stop, stop. But in reality, like you said, it's a habit. So you have to
Yep.
slowly unevolve those tight, wounded, netted emotional traumas. And it's a process. It's not going to happen overnight, which I am trying to give myself more compassion on a daily basis for. It's not easy,
Yep.
but that's just yet another pattern that I have to get out of. So when I have this one pattern, I'm trying to do a different pattern, and then another pattern comes up, and then I get exhausted. I'm like, all I wanted was to do one thing, and now my brain just feels like mush. So yeah,
Yep. Which
it's definitely
then which then brings in that, oh, we need rest.
right. But I didn't really do much. So I have all these things I want to do that
Yep.
I know I'm capable of, but I'm so tired right now. I just want to and I guess that's what they really say when it's a dark night of the soul, where you just need to rest your body. And it's
Yep.
so hard because I've programming around being the competitor, being the person to make money, being the person to achieve your dreams and just work, 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 work.
Right.
But I have to learn how to rest. So,
Yes.
and I want to do new things and I'm excited about those new things. So every day I'm just in this constant, like I'm getting beaten the hell by emotions. And I'm just like, oh my God, what do I do? So I'm giving myself some grace, which I usually don't do. Like you said, trying to give myself more compassion that I'm doing things for my soul and
Yep.
my time will come. Whenever that time comes, it'll come. Kind of like what we spoke about yesterday,
Yep.
where like you get that intuition, you just like go. And then whenever something hits you, you're doing it.
Yep.
And I get that tuition, but I feel it. And if I act on it too soon, I kind of get hit back. But until it comes, when that moment feels right, then you go and you do it. And I right now I'm waiting for that blip that you talk about. It's coming, but right now I'm just meant to rest, I think.
It's so hard to listen to that when we've been taught like it is go, 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 go. And so like that's just another one of those patterns. Like when you've been told your entire life, or not even told, watched the world around you, that everyone is just rushing everywhere they go. And if you don't have it figured out, then there's something wrong. You have to like be able to move through that. And I feel that for you. Like I'm a mom of four. The only reason I was able to like have that compassion was because it was the only way through
Yeah.
it. But I was so like I know you can relate. I'm a Pisces, so I like embody love. Like I just love people. I love everything. And I just want everyone to be nice and kind and everyone get along. But when you're not honoring how you're feeling, then that can turn into frustration and then overwhelm because you're doing too much. And then you take it out on the people around you. So then I was the one that was taking it out on my kids unintentionally because I'm just so frustrated and like, will you please just listen to what I'm saying? And like, and then you yell and then you feel bad. And it's that nonstop, constant loop of criticizing myself because I fucked up and I yelled at him again and I didn't want to do that. But you can't unlearn that overnight.
Yeah.
And you get to see it as you keep moving forward and you're already seeing it because you have the awareness, like you have that ability to be like, I'm seeing the progress, but at the same time, like, can I just get to the end game because I know that's going to be freaking beautiful.
Oh my God, that is, yeah, that relates more than I can even describe. I just want the end game to be here already.
Oh,
Yeah.
patience is so hard to learn as a Pisces.
I people say I have the most patience in the world, but it's because they're not listening to my brain. They're not listening to what's going
Yes.
on inside my head. I'm sitting there quiet because I don't want to deal with it.
Yeah.
And that's what my patience is, me not dealing with something. So,
Yep.
but me while I'm sitting there, I'm just like, come on, let's get it done.
Well, it's so easier. It's so much easier to have the patience for the other people, but then
Yeah,
we're like so self-critical of ourselves because
right.
we know better, dang it.
Right. It's like just relax. Like everything's gonna be okay.
Yeah.
But I'm kind of going crazy right now. Like I'm the person right now that needs to listen to that. I need the patience more than anybody. Like in in your own head.
Yep.
So yeah, I definitely relate to that. It's not easy.
It's not. So you already mentioned your dad. Like that had to have been, I don't know, like such a heartwarming like realization, like because they are their own people. They have their own journeys and their own things that they carry. And I mean, they were programmed from a world that we're programmed from as well. So it's this nonstop constant loop until you decide to break the cycle and say, no, I'm done with that and get off the ride.
Hmm.
But for him to be able to say that with where he's at right now, like, I don't know, like, did that make you feel like way super connected to him? Like, what did that do?
Well, it's interesting because so my girlfriend now, she taught me a lot of what it meant to, like, it was almost like two different sides of love. It was one side of
Right.
love that growing up where it was like on top of you and like I want to take care of you. Like I love you so freaking much. And then the other side, it was
Yes.
like my girlfriend, she taught me how, like the loving, like soft, like that compassionate, like slowing love. And that alone maybe start wondering what even love is, just as like a basis point for
Right.
like what is it feeling like. And what that did was it kind of set me down this rabbit hole of connecting traumas. So why does my family feel like love should be on top of you? Like why is love from my girlfriend more of a comfort soft feeling? Like where did those connections start? And
Right.
I spent a lot of time trying to understand my parents' situation and diving down the rabbit hole of what were their parents like to them? What was my grandparents' parents like to them? And not only that, but seeing the dynamics between their upbringing and seeing
Right.
why certain things happen to begin with and seeing how that manifested into them, which then connected to me. And that's really what generational trauma is.
Right.
And as you dial in all the lineage from why you are here now to the point of existence, you
Hmm.
really just realize that we're all the same thing. We all come from stars. We're all from the universe. We're all just made up of all these things, our body that
Right.
is outside of ourselves. And it's crazy how that one thing led to all that, but that's the truth of reality.
Hmm.
And I'm at a point now where I'm realizing that even if my parents do nothing, let's just say they or anybody, they decide not to take care of themselves, not do anything, I'm still in this body for me, right? This is still my
Yep.
existence for me. I can't control how my parents talk to me. I can't control how my girlfriend talks to me. I can't fix I can't change. I can't do anything except for be there for them through their journey.
Yeah.
So understanding that led to the bigger acceptance from my father to hear those things.
Mm-hmm.
And once I heard that, it was almost like I thought of it as like the universe speaking through that moment, and
Right.
I don't really need to. It's also calmed me down and realize like I don't need to know everything to do something or to feel
Yeah.
better. I don't need to know everything. That's my trauma. Like I try and learn, take in knowledge as a form of safety because that was the only thing that kept me going was learning about reality, learning about what we are. That made me feel safe. But what it did, which is what I'm trying to undo now, is it created a form of control and that control of my reality. I feel as though I have a good control of what's going on around me because I understand it. But the truth is, we don't have any control of anything. I am just a body, right? Think about this. I'm just a body, right? I have these hands. I can move my hands. I can do things with them. But the skin, I have no control over.
Yep.
I developed eczema out of nowhere. Like whenever the weather changes, now I have eczema. That is not under my control and it bugs me out. My cells, they're feeding the mitochondria or however it works on
Right.
a daily basis. We're refreshing our cells. Our liver is functioning. Our kidneys are working. All these things of this body flesh. I don't know what's going on with my gut right now. I don't know how my gut biome is, but it's working. It's keeping me alive. So I'm sitting here thinking like I have such great control of my reality because I know how things work, but nothing that is around me is created by myself. Like I'm only doing this because I'm allowed to. Like God is or whatever's out there is allowing me to have this process. The higher self is coming through me to be able to see these things. And that has nothing to do with me. And that's a part I'm at now where
Mm-hmm.
everything I've said about my family, about my relationships, about just like my existence, ultimately, the person that wakes up every morning that opens his eyes, whether he sees or doesn't see, whether he can talk or not talk, that conscious existence is a blessing because it is gifted upon me for whatever reason it may be. And I feel like the journey of self-discovery, of rediscovering who your true self is making that connection with your higher self and being grateful for that connection to exist and make a better impact for the group. And not to go on a tangent, but I do feel like where we're at right now as a collective civilization, as a earth, as
Mm-hmm.
a community, as a family, as a human, we're at a state where the universe wants us to reconnect with ourselves. Because at some point, when you follow the lineage of ourselves, there had to have been a point where this started. Like we started fighting each other. We started feeling crappy about ourselves, like beating ourselves up
Yep.
way long ago. And there had to have been a reason for that. Whether we bit the the apple from Adam and Eve, like in the Voice of Knowledge that you recommended, um, whatever it may have specifically been to occur, we're at a state now of unlearning all of those traumas from prior generations to where we are now. And I think that's why beautiful people like yourself and other collected people are coming together in a spiritual way that we really haven't seen in a long time. And
Right.
now that spiritual process, we're all unfolding at a faster pace because we're starting to unlearn a lot of that industrial trauma that the United States put onto us of making sure we go to work, feed your families. When in reality, we should all just be enjoying life, like make some money doing whatever it may be, helping other people, helping your community, farming, taking care of whatever it may be. Ultimately, though, it's to feel good every day. And I
Yep.
feel like now our purpose is really to help others feel the same like what you're doing right now. You're helping me. Which I hope that through your
Oh,
light, with the way you're helping me through your light, I'm able to share that light with other people, like kind of like a spark in a flame, just lighting
yep.
up the collective. So thank you for that again.
I appreciate that. Oh, it's such a beautiful message. And it kind of like completely explains what it is that I'm doing here. Because like for me, I used to try to take on the weight of the world, and it sounds like you kind of did that too. Like it's
Mm-hmm.
my job to heal everybody. It's my job to make sure everyone feels safe and loved and let me just do all the things and I can do it because of that control. But when you step out of that and realize, like, I don't have control over anyone else, and you start looking inward of what do I have control over? The only thing I have control over is how I feel at any given moment. You
Mhm.
know, my thoughts, my reality, those are the things I can control. If I don't like what my reality looks like, I can change that based off of the choices I make. But when we're living in that survival, which is what I feel like, yeah, that's what you're touching on. Like, we've been in survival mode for generations upon generations, and it's not getting any easier. But I think we're finally getting to a place where we're all realizing, well, I can't help everyone else, but I can control this. And then once one person does it, it's like the domino effect. Because I'm sharing my story, I'm sharing my light, I called you in. And then you're going to feel like you're going to take whatever today brings, and you're going to take whatever comes from this, and you're going to continue to share your light, and that's going to call in more people. And it gives me chills at the amount of joy, because that's just all happening in love, because we're just sharing our stories and loving each other, and it's beautiful.
That's very well said. You're that's exactly it. Like if I like let's just say 2 months ago,
Hmm.
this moment, if I wanted to, wouldn't be able to happen. As much as I want the destination to be here already, moments like
Right.
these are what actually brings the seeds to fruit. It's
Right.
what bears like the actual vegetables to grow and then for
Hmm.
nourishment. I can't do that on my own. I need to wait for that time to come, just like the rest of us do.
Yeah.
And if universal timing of you having that courage to put out what you did, and then for me to jump in, that can't be replicated. It has to come naturally. And
Absolutely.
that's the beautiful flow of the universe that, you know, you can't replicate, you can't force, you have to have patience for it, like you were touching on earlier.
Yep.
And it like even just thinking about how your journey has led to this moment, which
Hmm.
has then helped me in so many ways, like when this is over, what I'm going to be taking from that, that is universe at play. That is the God at work. That is
Yep.
the energy moving things around. And sometimes people confuse that with like a selfish, like they view that and they see it as, well, this is all for me, like this happened for me, when in reality it's not, because your flow of energy isn't even, it's helping me, but it's coming through me onto others. It's
Yep.
a web effect.
Yep.
Just like roots of a tree, you know, or the connections that mushroom make on the ground. It's like that one connection, or the brains in our mind, they connect and then they stem out. That's what
Right.
you're doing for me through to others, and what you're
Yep.
continuing to do through other people, which is a beautiful thing.
I appreciate that. We're all connected because of this energy. Like, we all come from whatever you believe in. Like, it's, if it's God, universe, source, there is some sort of higher power in the, like, in my belief, for us to be here. Like, it's scientifically, like, us being able to be alive, we are all energy. Everything around us is energy, and it can't be created or destroyed. So where does that leave us? Which means we all come from the same place. So if I heal me, then that's going to in turn help others around me. And the only way that I understood that was watching things like this. Like, when I share my story, or I share my journey, or I say something that has a profound effect on somebody else, and I realize me doing what I need to do for me actually helps those around me, because it's that intention. I'm setting the intention of, like, this is how I want to be in the world. And then you're going to take that and use it with what you will. But that's not my job. That's not my responsibility. So even if you don't see it, it's still okay. I'm planting the seed. And when the time is right for each individual person, it starts blossoming into this beautiful thing, just like, your dad saying what he did. That now has a profound effect today, because you understand it that much more than you did even when he said it. And it's just
Yeah.
that seed, and they build, and I don't, it's like this beautiful garden with all these flowers and all this light. And I'm just so glad that you're a part of like my personal garden now. Like you're a part of this journey, and
Yeah.
we're going to talk on this in, a year, 5 years from now and be like, that was a big deal.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
I don't know.
My girlfriend actually got not mad at me, but she was more just like why didn't you tell me that you were planning on doing this or doing this? Not in a mad way, but in like a feel bad way of like I thought I was, someone you could.
Yeah.
And I I was like, it's a me thing. Like it's just I
It
didn't
is.
feel valid enough to for this to even occur. And that's like the beauty of like these small little things that we do, like what you're doing with this,
Mhm.
big things. This is a big thing, but just the small things that we might do for other people. It's like like my dad is they grow and they web out and they connect with others and they make a powerful impact. And
Yeah.
that's really what scared me at some point because if I don't feel like I have control over something, which by the way, listeners, if and you too, I don't know if you know, but I have Pluto on my rising sign, so it's
Mhm.
like right on the cusp. So how I project onto the world is I need to have some type of power in terms of understanding of control on a subconscious level. So this
Mhm.
way, I understand my reality without that dynamic of being able to be aware of what's going on a deep subconscious spiritual level. Then I feel like I can't function. Like that's how the anxiety trauma started at a young age
Yeah.
was I needed to create that control in the form of understanding. It's kind of like knowing how something works before you work on it. It's like
Yep.
knowing how this computer works before I start typing on the keyboard. It's like I need to know how the computer works before I even use it, which is life. And once I knew
Yes.
how life works, I felt better. And what scared me was, and still I'm working through, is this beautiful flow that we have going on and this beautiful flow that will continue to grow throughout years and years and years because of what you're doing. I have no say over that. I have no, and not, when I say, it's not in a word way, it's more of a spiritual connection way,
Mhm.
like what you were touching on, like I can't fix you. I like whatever you do is totally up to you, and I
Yep.
understand that. But where I'm at now is letting go of that control
Yep.
completely and realizing like we're beautiful as is,
Yep.
and not just understanding it, but feeling that release of control is where I'm on now.
Yeah.
And it's creeping and it's building and it's getting there. But once I'm able to fully let go of that spiritual connection on a reliability standpoint for my well-being, so this way
Right.
I know I'm okay, which is connected to family trauma and everything. Once
Yep.
that is let go completely, then I think that's when my beautiful work can come out. But touching on earlier, it's that universal timing of knowing when the time's right. And I feel like that time is coming, but I
Mhm.
still have to go through this unwinding process of those habits and those moments that still affect me to be able to release it on a deep level. But
Right. Almost like controlling what can happen today, like what is the intention for today, and then seeing where that takes you.
right, see, that's
Almost.
exactly it. Seeing it where it takes you and allowing moments like these, like what you must like when you put out that post,
Mhm.
allowing those moments to occur, not even
Yep.
just allowing in a spiritual way of just letting go of it. Because
Yep.
something beautiful that I listened to, the person said, um, you can't let go of something. It just happens. What you have to do is look at the things that are making you not let go. Like, what is it that is preventing you from not letting go? Is what you put your focus on.
Right.
The act of letting go is natural. That's the beauty. That's the feeling. And I got in blips of that, and I felt that months ago, last year when I had that big spiritual awakening. Was nothing was happening. I mean, everything was happening, but I had nothing to do with it. And I was
Yeah.
able to see and feel those spiritual connections occur, and I was mind blown. It was like the most beautiful feeling, the beautiful visual experience of like witnessing these things happen. But once the trauma started setting back in and started creeping in, the controls started to creep in and
Yeah.
allowing to let go and to trust and have faith in these occurrences happening, that is the hardest part, is the faith aspect. Because in order for you to let go and allow that feeling to overcome you, you have to have faith that's going to be okay.
Right.
And that's trauma for me, where my existence was always uncertainty for tomorrow, which is scarcity. And my tomorrow was never as good as excuse me, my today was never as good as what tomorrow could bring. So we were
Right.
always anticipating the next day to get better. Today, we're working on tomorrow. We're not working on today, we're working on tomorrow. But the faith aspect, which I'm learning now, is having full faith in today, in the now, and knowing that tomorrow is going to be beautiful, regardless of what you say, do, or act upon. But you have faith that you're doing the right things today to bring you there. And I guess I have a question for you is, have you experienced that letting go? Have you experienced that faith? And if so, what has it been like? And if you could touch on that, because I'm very curious.
So from the sounds of it, like I'm hearing what you're saying and trying to like see where that taps into with like how like well with what words I use. And it feels a whole lot like attachment and versus non-attachment.
Yes.
And
Yes.
it is like a really profound feeling. And I I still have I don't understand my journey on it. Like I don't know how I did what I did, but I know that with where I'm at right now, like I'm not attached to outcomes.
Mm-hmm.
And it all started because of my husband.
Right.
Like my husband is a tree climber and he is very action packed oriented human being. Like he loves adrenaline. So like every day he was going to work and could die. Like I knew every day he might be taken away from me. And then he wanted to ride a motorcycle. So then I was like, well, that you're just like trying to leave me at this point. And he asked me this question one night and was like, listen, what are you going to do if I die tomorrow? And I think he just was curious, like, would I move on? Like, would I go find somebody else? And we talked about it a little bit, but that question stuck with me and it festered and I thought about it over and over again. I was like, what would I do? I've
Mm-hmm.
literally created this entire life around him and my children. I'm
Mm-hmm.
home with them and I'm not happy anyways. Like I'm spending every day miserable because I'm not doing enough to take care of everybody. So
Mm-hmm.
like all of it was intermixed. And then I did the only thing I knew how and I blew it up and was going to run and try over and do it
Mm-hmm.
again. But he held space for that. And that's when we realized like we were having love through conditions.
Mm-hmm.
And we really needed that unconditional love, which is non-attachment. Like we do the thing, release the need for expectations, release the conditions. Whatever happens, we'll deal with it. Like we've shown ourselves this whole time
Mm-hmm.
through this whole life that we can keep ourselves safe. We can deal with whatever comes our way.
Mm-hmm.
So that is my truth. Whatever happens, I can deal with it. So
Right.
if he dies tomorrow, I can deal with that. It'll be okay. But if I'm going to sit in that worry, then I'm not going to be able to enjoy today because I'm too busy worrying about if I'm going to lose him tomorrow.
Yeah. That is exactly, that's a perfectly relatable experience to what I'm going through in
Yep.
terms of that attachment to my existence. If you could
Right.
relate that to myself, like if
Yep.
I felt what you feel about your husband when he asked that question, that's how I feel about myself.
Right.
And that aspect is very hard for me to make sense of, because I have trauma around trying to make sense of things through
Right.
words, which is probably why I asked you that question, because I
Yeah.
needed to hear in words the exact knowledge of what could help me.
Right.
But I was going to ask another question regarding that for you can expand on that. But in that moment, I realized that that's just a trauma induced question, because I'm trying to get to the bottom of it, which is
Hmm.
again a Pluto rising thing. And once I get to the bottom of it, then I feel okay. But the point of what you're saying is that you have to just allow things to occur when they occur.
Yep.
Like if he dies tomorrow, obviously you're going to feel XYZ, but ultimately you will deal with it when the time comes, and you
Yep.
will be okay at some point right after, before, whatever in
Yep.
your journey. And the thing is, you can't sit and worry about if he's going to be coming home or not. You can't.
Yeah.
Just
No.
like I can't sit and worry if my brain's going to blow up or if I'm going to
Exactly.
die tomorrow or, if I'm going to feel okay just knowing that I won't have anxiety on a daily basis just because I don't have everything figured out.
Hmm.
And that trauma response is one of the biggest things I'm getting out of this conversation already. So thank you for
I do my best.
that. Just do my thing.
That's what I do. I speak what's on my heart, and generally it works out.
Yeah.
I don't know. But I don't know. I think by healing that with him, like, so I think you can relate. Like, I'm a codependent people pleaser, like
Mhm.
recovering.
Right.
Those were my traumas. I was codependent, people pleasing. Like, I lived for other people. I didn't live for me, I lived for them.
Mhm.
And it got me through. Like, that is what I needed up until a certain point. So, him saying what he said made me realize, like, oh, okay, well, if I lose you, I have to survive for my kids.
Mhm.
And then if I have to survive for them, but I lose him and I'm broken, like, oh crap. So, like, my own trauma then circled, like, what? Oh, this isn't going to
Mhm.
work. This
Right.
is not an okay plan. So I think I healed almost like those conditions for myself along the
Mhm.
journey by using my trauma. So almost like using the trauma helped me make sense of it until I was in a place where I could accept, like, oh, we're okay now.
Right.
Almost using it to your advantage, holding space for it because it is a part of who I am. It is a
Mhm.
part of my journey, my process. It doesn't mean it's who I am, but it is a part of it, and I can hold space, and I can have love and compassion, and I can hold my hand through it, and eventually it's not going to be even a blip on the radar anymore.
Right. Right.
So,
It's part of that journey. And
yeah.
also it's tough um to even unwind that because we're so conditioned to think that, or at least I was conditioned, and I've noticed in society as well, that we're very conditioned to think that if you try and take care of yourself, you're selfish.
Yep.
You're selfish. You have an ego.
Yep.
Like you're setting boundaries. Like, why would you do that? Like, what's wrong with me that you're setting a boundary with me? Like, that doesn't make any
Right.
sense, you know? So, even getting through that, like, once you felt that way through your husband and you realize, like, I have to do this for me, for my kids,
Mhm.
I'm sure you have had experiences where that power that you felt, which I'm scared of, to
Mhm.
be transparent with you, that power that you felt of I'm in my embodiment of self. Could you just explain how it felt to embrace that side of yourself and then to kind of walk the walk, so to say?
It's scary.
Mm,
Um I don't think I'm fully there yet to
okay.
be like to have complete clarity. I think the last few months I've embodied it more than I ever have, which is where this podcast came from.
Mm,
It was saying, okay, I'm ready to be seen. I'm ready to share what it is that is on my heart because I was waiting until I got to a certain point. Like, I wanted
mhm.
to have full embodiment and be at the end of this journey. And then finally I was like, girl, you're going to keep growing this whole time.
It's
You
so
need to
funny you said
share where you're at now because it's
that.
going to help somebody.
Yeah. Which is part of what you were saying before about it's all a journey,
Yep.
like when those moments come. So I think that for me, I'm learning that life is not clear cut and dry.
Yep.
It's you just got to keep doing things. And that's honestly why I joined the metaphysical school of Sedona,
Hmm.
University of Sedona, because it kind of takes what I've wanted to do, which is what I want to do, is I want to bridge the gap between the 3D of like the unconscious, so to say, for lack of a better
Right.
word, and the conscious, not in a power dynamic way, but in the equal playing field. And what I want to do is I want to create that gap between the two to allow it easier flow, like make it almost mainstream in a way of acceptance, knowing that it's not woo woo if you're
Right.
able to make that bridge. Because I've been on that side of the personal development and like the go go go, and I'm on the other side of the spiritual woo woo up in the clouds. Like I'm lost spiritually, but I feel great, and I want to be able to tell people that you can meet in the middle. And by doing so, I forgot what I was going to say actually. Why did I bring that up?
I'm not sure, but now I'm curious. Could you explain the difference? Because I hear these phrases all the time
Mhm.
and I just kind of go with it.
Okay.
But I know the 3D is like right now our reality, but like what's the difference between 3D and 4D?
So the main difference is raising an awareness and upper sense of perception. So it's
Okay.
almost as if the 3D would be like to to break it down. Oh, that's my girlfriend says, so kind of like spirituality for dummies, like you know how they have those books. And I
Right.
was like, oh, so yeah, kind of like that. And best way to describe it is, you have these mundane energy draining conversations like drama, like what your coworkers are talking about, and it's always some nonsense about some nonsense,
Yeah.
and that is kind of like service level. And to make it simple is like the 4D would be like looking at it from a depth point of view of seeing, well, why is that even occurring, and then feeling that experience on a broader level. And then that's when you start creeping into the spiritual side of things, because then you understand that, oh, you're only talking shit about your coworker because you have trauma around, I don't know, girls building you or whatever. So you lash out in an angry way. And like understanding that connection
Uh-huh.
of why people do certain things, I guess is the easy way to describe that 4D. So my biggest struggle growing up was talking to people, and I would immediately hit them. Bang. I would hit them with the deepest things as to why they're doing certain things. And they'd look at me like, huh? Like, what are you talking about? Like, so an example would be like, a friend of a friend went to jail because of some nonsense. He was homeless at some point, and he got out, and I was talking to him, and you could tell, and he had a kid at the time. I felt his pain, that he experienced by not being able to be there for his son. And
Right.
right away, and I spoke about this with that intuitive feeling that I get. And in that moment, for whatever reason, through talking to him, I realized that he only had that connection because he felt abandoned by his father. So that caused him to be weak, quote unquote weak, is what he thought he was doing. And
Right.
that's why he beats himself up. And that depth perception, I hit him right away. And luckily the universe allowed that moment to happen, and we had a beautiful moment. But for the typical person, if we finish this podcast and you talk to your husband, he's like, yeah, I met this schmuck James, he's such an idiot. Like he has a beard. And your husband's like, he has a beard, what does he got to do with anything? And you're like, I don't know, he's stupid, he has a beard. Just simplifying it. But what I would do is I would talk to someone and say, well, when you were 10 years old, you almost got molested by a guy who has a beard. Like, let's just say whatever. And so
Right.
you make that conscious, unconscious connection between people who have beards who did something wrong to you, and it's manifesting in an outlash way towards me who I didn't do anything. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So what I want to do is I want to bridge that gap to make it so that it's almost easy, fun, yet beautiful and hard all at the same time. 'Cause that's what spirituality is,
Mm-hmm.
to look at that from yourself, and break down those experiences so that you don't outlash towards people unconsciously.
Right.
And that's really where a lot of the problems come in our societies, especially at least in my area, where everyone's talking something about somebody, everyone has something to say about somebody, but who cares? Like these aren't things. You shouldn't be hurting another person just because of your own trauma. And a lot of
No.
people are unconscious of their trauma. And what I've noticed, the biggest um, hurdle for people is whenever they do view that, they think of it as therapy. They think of it as being weak. They think of it as woo woo spirituality. They think of it as being oversensitive, for the masculine guys, or even the masculine women who are just hyper masculine and they are
Mm-hmm.
afraid to express their feelings. We're all dynamic. And I want to be able to make us not mainstream, but I want to make it easy for people and comfortable for people to make developing yourself cool.
Right.
If that, I don't know if the words are appropriate, but that feeling is what I'm trying to get at for people.
That is so beautiful. And it's so funny because you said, there's so many people in that drama of like talking about other people. That was my entire childhood leading into like early adulthood. Everybody around me connected through gossip.
Yep.
And it, even in those moments, it just felt so wrong for me. Like I
Hmm.
didn't like it. I would sit and listen to them, but half the time I just wouldn't say anything because I'm like, this doesn't feel right. I did have my moments where I'd be like, this person pissed me off. Like, but I didn't like it. It didn't feel right. And I was always the one that was like, well, maybe they were having a hard time today.
Hmm.
Maybe this happened, or maybe this. And I was the black sheep. Like,
Hmm.
okay, Sarah, like, we don't want your love right now. We
Right.
want to
Yeah.
be pissed off at them right now. Get on the right level.
Exactly. Exactly.
So I love that that's what you want to help with because gosh, the world needs it.
Oh my God, that is so true. I've experienced that more than I could count. And what happened actually was in those moments, I would just shut up then. I would just be like, all right, whatever. And then
Yep.
I'd beat myself up. And then it's like at the same time, I would suppress my emotions because then when I felt those emotions towards other people, I would like shut it off. And then be like, no,
Hmm.
it's not right. But I wasn't, it's not the healthy way of doing it. It wasn't until I started understanding people for where they're at, like what you were saying,
Yep.
then I'm able to not even have those moments of anger to begin with, which is ultimately the goal. Because
Oh my
if you're
gosh. Yeah.
unhealed, then those things will constantly get to you. Like if I'm fighting with somebody and they keep triggering those same exact web of trauma over and over again, I could talk to 1,000 people and I'll still have that problem. An example is I had a coworker at one point who was exactly like my ex-girlfriend, and me and my ex-girlfriend were very toxic with each other. I was,
Okay.
this is while I was in my anxiety phase. And although she was very loving helper with me, we fought like cat and dog. But that trauma that I had from that relationship of being in an abusive relationship, I was abusive to her, she was abusive to me. Being in that situation made me not like this girl, this coworker. And she actually had trauma around masculine energy because of her background, and
Hmm.
she didn't like me either. So we would bicker back and forth. And it wasn't until about a year later that I saw her after I stopped working there. And I told her, I was like, listen, I just want to apologize because I outlashed a lot of my trauma, which was unhealed towards you about my ex-girlfriend. And realized how after I had clarity that that was manifesting through you. And I just want to apologize if I put you in any hard times or anything. And she felt that, and she explained to me her situation, why she felt the way she felt about me. And I thought it was a beautiful
Right.
moment. And what I realized from that point was it wasn't until I healed a lot of the trauma around my ex-girlfriend and forgave her, forgave myself, forgave the situation as a whole, that I
Hmm.
started not having those feelings about aggressive women or about bickering. Like when people would just say certain things that would
Hmm.
trigger me, they don't it started leaning out and I would be like, I'm over it, but I wouldn't be. So I'd get
Yep.
annoyed. But now I'm at the point where when those things happen, I'm like, I understand your journey. I feel for you.
Yep.
How can I help you? Like, how can I be there for you? And
Yep.
just saying those things sometimes makes people even more mad.
Oh my gosh, I know.
It's like if you
Because
just
they
don't,
they want to fight with you.
right, and it's like, come on, give me something, come on, and it's like I'm genuinely here for you. Like I know you're going through a bad time, or I know there's something going on for you to feel this way. Just so you know, I'm here for you, and I love you for even like being here in this conversation because ultimately it's for you, it's for the better, and you're
Right.
helping me learn as well. And it's like they want you to be a piece of shit, like they want you to just say the worst to them because they're ready for you. And
Yeah.
it's all trauma response.
Yep.
And what happened to me, which we spoke about yesterday a little bit, was like that validation
Hmm.
of when I would say those things, I would shun myself, like that people pleaser, like that trying to feel accepted. um I I was that person that would always try to help the situation, but to get then getting shut up 2 seconds later. So it's just like, am
Yep.
I even valuable in general to society, to friends, to family, to whoever. And then that caused me to question myself even further, which was not
Yep.
helpful. So through that acceptance, be able to be there for other people through that trauma response and healing that, be able to help people. And
Hmm.
that's why where I'm at, I really want to make it accessible for people and to bridge that gap because
Right.
therapy isn't for everyone because therapy has a lot of stigma around medications, has a lot of stigma
Yep.
around money making. And I want to be a counselor for people on the transpersonal level, which transpersonal is basically outside of yourself. So bringing
Hmm.
the outside into you and allowing that spiritual experience, the human dynamic and the journey that we've come to, allowing that to
Hmm.
unfold in a loving way and making it comfortable, fun, easy, not in a therapeutic session where it's almost like you're feeling criticized and there's
Right.
something wrong with you. What can I give you? Do you want Xanax? Do you want they're trying to give me Xanax at 15, 14 years old. What do I need pills for?
Right.
And I'm fine without it. I was fine. I got over it. And that's because of the spiritual journey.
Right. See, and I don't know. It just makes you question and wonder about like everybody and like all their journeys, and it's all connected,
Mhm,
and it's all for the greater purpose of like what we're on this earthly plane to do. And it all comes back around to this is my journey and what is it that I'm meant to do. And it's so it's such a long and sometimes like extremely exhausting journey, like getting there, but it's also so fun. And I think that's where like the people that are connecting in the negative, like connecting in that space of, drama and bickering and just bitching about one another, they're trying to find the connection. Like that's what I see. They're trying to find that connection. They're trying to connect with one another in what they're experiencing, but they're connecting in that fear-based pain instead of like letting in that love and connecting with themselves again so they can let other people in. And it just reminds me like emotions are messengers. Like
mhm,
if I'm feeling that all the time, then there's something going on inside of me. What is it? So
mhm,
curiosity comes to mind, like getting curious about why do I feel this way right now? But it's hard when you're every day in and day out, like I'm just trying to survive. So it's we need people like you to be a space holder for this journey.
yeah. I can I can I can do my best.
Right. And that's all we can do. Well,
Right.
kind of like the four agreements,
Right. Right.
do your
Yeah.
best each and every
Mhm,
day, but it's going to look different,
right.
and hold space for that. And I'm just so grateful for your journey and for you and your love and your light. And before I ask my ending questions, I had one other thing. It keeps popping up, so apparently I'm supposed to ask.
Okay.
So like you shared that like you didn't tell your girlfriend, you didn't tell your family that you were doing this because of that validation piece. And it's so interesting to me, and I'm finding this more and more with people that struggle with like codependency and people pleasing. It's almost like when you start taking your power back, you can't let other people know because
Mhm,
it almost will like deter you, because if they say one wrong thing, then you might not actually continue to do it. Or if they say something and you love them enough, it might make you change your mind because, you know, what if they're right? What if I'm
mhm,
wrong? Because you're like questioning it all. So I wanted to share an experience when I started going through all of that portion of it. I wanted a tattoo.
mhm,
Like I had never gotten one. And for whatever reason, I was like, I'm getting this tattoo for my dad. I'm going, like, it's going to be awesome. I didn't tell anybody. And at this time, my husband knew like we weren't in a good place, but I was trying to find my own autonomy. Like, I'm making choices for me. So I was like, I need you. I didn't ask. I said, I need you to watch these kids on Friday at this time. I have an appointment. Didn't tell him what it was for. He kept asking. I wouldn't tell him. I just like, I'm doing something for me. When I came back, the amount of relief he had because he thought I was going to like file for divorce or something.
Oh my God.
And I'm like, no, I just got a tattoo. It's real pretty. Look at it.
I can't believe you said that because I'm feeling the same thing. Actually, it's funny you said that because I have a
That's why I was
couple.
supposed to tell you.
Yeah, I have a couple of tattoos already on my thigh, and when I got them, I didn't, they're small, but I didn't tell my family about them. And then I wound up telling them whatever. I didn't tell them I was getting them, but I got it.
Hmm.
I want to get a visual tattoo, and it's that exactly what you're talking about. I'm feeling held back by it, and I wanted to get love on my knuckles for my grandfather because my
Wow.
grandfather has love on his knuckles. He just passed away, and he
Okay.
had, linking into that, but I wanted to get on my knuckles, but the stigma of having a visual tattoo, let
Yep.
alone on your hands. And I
Yep.
just wanted to just go and just not tell anybody and just do these things. And I that's interesting about the codependency and the validation because I definitely relate to that on a really, really strong level of not wanting to own my own power. It's
Yep.
uncomfortable.
Yep.
That's the biggest thing. And adding to that is if I do own my own power, I'm immediately going to get back in my shell because the people I love around me are saying things that I'm going to take way too serious. I'm going to
Yep.
listen to everything they're saying, and I'm going to be like, maybe it's not the best idea to have a visual tattoo on my hand that says love, maybe. And then not only that, but having love on my knuckles, it's me expressing myself fully, like
Hmm.
love in general. If I put that on my knuckles, that is me putting myself out there. That is me laying it all on the table. Like there's nothing
Yep.
more like love on my knuckles. And it's like I'm uncomfortable with people even questioning the tattoo. That's how deep this goes. That if I do no, number one, make that jump, but then number two, people asking about it. And I have to tell them like, well, it's for my grandfather and love in general is what I feel for humanity as a whole. And love is
Right.
the answer always. That's uncomfortable to me because then I have to be extra vulnerable. I have to really
Yeah.
put myself on the table. And yeah, maybe I'll make an appointment for tomorrow to get it done. I don't know.
If I know anything, like after going through what I've gone through, it happens when it's meant to happen. So like if you feel like it's time, it's good, you're gonna do it. And the only advice I have to offer on that is remember if it makes anyone walk away from you, they weren't the people that were meant for you to begin with.
That was one of my biggest fears, actually.
Same.
That was one of my biggest fears that if I
Yep.
own my power, that my family won't love me. They will
Right.
leave me. My girlfriend will leave me. She
Yep.
won't love me. The people around me, I won't be accepted by anybody. I won't tattoo, yes, but also just in general of me owning that power, like we spoke
Yep.
about. That is, and you're, I think, the third person to tell me that. So I think this is
There's a
pretty
sign.
synchronistic. There's first time, second time won't listen. Third time, I'm gonna listen
Yep.
to you, Sarah.
I'm that's why universe told me to say it apparently. I'm learning to trust that. But it is so true. Like that was my fear of not telling my husband like a lot of the things I was thinking or how I was feeling because like we acted a certain way for so long of an amount of time. What if I start owning myself? Like then what's going to happen? Well, in my case, I just blew it up and was like, I'm just going to do it for you so you don't have the
Mm.
ability to walk from me. Thankfully, he knocked me down a peg and was like, no, we're going to
Mm.
be adults and work through this. He held space for it, but they surprise you. The right
Mm.
people surprise you
Mm.
and they work through it with you. And it's, don't get me wrong, it's not easy. And,
Mm.
but the more you step into it, the more you find and connect with your inner being and the more fun you get to have. And then you get to
Mm.
this place of, I get to live this life. And it's not easy. It's not meant to be. There's still trials, there's still
Mm,
shit that hits the fan,
mhm,
and things will pop up, but it gets to be more fun.
mm, yeah.
And I'm so grateful to be a part of yours. And I'm just, I don't know. I
No, thank you.
can't wait to see where it goes from here. Like you're coming back on and we're just going to talk about spiritual everything
Oh, that sounds fun to me.
because these
I'm ready for that.
conversations are great.
Yeah, I
I
love
feel
these
like
comments.
we were supposed to be talking about your journey, which we did,
Mm,
but I think we're meant to connect with trying
mm.
to bounce off ideas and see where it goes. And
Yeah, I'm I'm open to it. I'm ready to
I
go.
love it. I love it. I hope you're going to share with your girlfriend how beautiful this experience
Oh, I will for
was.
sure. Yeah,
Let
for
her
sure.
in.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. I will. Yeah, I won't shut up because I have a
Yes,
problem where I just keep going and going, and she's sitting there like, "Yeah, okay, okay," and it's like, it's hard to like
I
keep
love
up
it.
sometimes. So yeah,
Okay, so if she needs any help, my husband totally can relate.
okay. I'm glad we also share that relatability that our significant others gets like
Yeah,
just so overwhelmed.
gets
But
big. It gets really big. The
yeah.
excitement.
Yeah, yeah. This is tough. I'm trying to be as tamed as possible because I could run around right now. I'm so excited.
Same. But that's the beauty. Like, and
Right.
that's what I'm trying to share here.
Mm,
I the first few videos that I've done with other people, it's been like sit and be proper and like, but no, this is me.
right.
I sparkly, sunshiny, I giggle, I go off topic. We
Hmm.
talk about what the universe is telling us to talk about right now.
Hmm.
And that's why these conversations have to be authentic because this is where we grow. This is where
Right.
we learn and we connect and we build beautiful things from it.
I'm almost watching you as a person that helps others unfold their journey by talking about the
Yes.
journey. And
Yep.
you're picking up that information from the universe. And those questions of what might seem like off topic are really significant questions that
Yes.
you're being called to ask for a reason. And that's
Yep.
beautiful as is. And keep it up, Sarah. You're kicking butt.
Thank you. Right back at you, my friend. So, coming to that note, do you at this stage in your journey with what you've experienced and the things that we touched on today, if you had somebody that came to you for like one little bit of advice, what's like something, maybe even something small, but like what is one big of advice that could make a profound effect on their journey moving forward?
I'm going to give two things, one
Okay.
personal, one general. The
Okay.
personal one would be not to take everything so serious because life is not serious.
Yep.
It might feel your experience, it might actually have validation that, yeah, this is pretty serious, but on a bigger scale, on a upper echelon looking downward, it's not that serious. It could be the worst thing
Right.
in the world and is not that serious. It's meant for you. And it's a journey that you have to look at as a beautiful experience to grow, no matter how
Yep.
difficult it might be. And then in general, I would say for anybody would be to just make the effort to change. And that doesn't mean change who you are. That means to get out of the programming you're in so that you could feel better every day. One of the things that I struggled with growing up was seeing so many people, not just family, friends, but people just walking around in general, how sad their most existence might be from a point of view of how they feel. And
Hmm.
a lot of people hold on to so much weight on a daily basis and they don't actually have the vulnerability to share that. So they take it all on themselves and they beat themselves up. And I think the message I want to share is to look at yourself with grace, with love, and not be hard on yourself. And you just have to start small. Just do the
Yep.
one journal exercise. Just ask yourself, who am I? What do I want? How can I make tomorrow better? And also take practical, which we didn't really talk about, my struggle with actually taking action on practical matters because I was my
Oh,
head's in the
right.
sky. But for the person listening, take the practical step, evaluate where you're lacking in your life and grow and just improve because that's really what the universe wants. We The universe wants to grow, expand, learn, and
Yep.
reach out, and with love. So
Yep.
making that effort, if you had to hear this, make that effort today and do the one thing that could take you to feeling better on a daily basis, because our feeling of existence is what gets us to then help others and to then help the collective and us to live in a better world as a whole. So that would be my message.
Love that. This is a beautiful message. Now, my other curiosity is when you hear the phrase the new dream, what does that make you consider? Like, what does it make you think of?
The new dream makes me consider a shift in perspective for something more than what was, or maybe not more, but different than what was,
Mhm.
and for yourself. So that new dream, for me personally, was reconnecting with my inner self and seeing that there's more to life than just the 3D material, work hard, play hard type of mentality,
Mhm.
and to actually have a new dream to then go out there for yourself to then help others in some way. I think that is what would come to me for the new dream.
Oh, I love it. I appreciate you and your story and your journey and hopping on here and stepping into uncomfortable movement and giving yourself that validation and just being the light that you are and sharing with where you're at and doing something that was a little hard. And I commend you for it because it's not always easy doing the hard thing. And I am so grateful that we've met and that
I
you're a part
appreciate
of
it.
this journey.
Grateful for you as well for allowing me to be on. I'm grateful
Yeah.
for you for opening my eyes up to a lot of things, and really grateful just for this connection that we built. And
Mhm.
hopefully we help somebody, because I know for sure you helped me. So thank you.
Do my thing, you do your thing. Like we're just out here living our best lives, you know?
Yeah, that's true that.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Got those pretty eyes that are wanting to